Okay, let's bow in. So welcome everyone to a Buddhist Path of Awakening course on Francesca Fremantle's Luminous Emptiness about the Bardos, Liberation Through Hearing. We're continuing our discussion of the chapter titled Wrathful Compassion with the wrathful deities. And I wanted to begin by just saying a little bit more similar to what I opened with last week, but also a little bit about just the use of imagery altogether, that imagery is one way of communicating ideas very directly, and that can even bypass to some extent our conceptual mind, and that there are a lot of different images used in Buddhist teachings. The purpose of a lot of the imagery that is used in the Bardo teachings, similar to the use of imagery in visualization or deity practice, is meant to familiarize us more and more with the awakened nature, the true nature of our mind, and all of the different attributes, qualities that are associated with that. But imagery is used in other ways too. It's used to teach us something about the nature of a confused mind as well. And sometimes, because we're more familiar with confused mind, it's easier to understand those images. So, for example, in the images that accompany the 12 nidanas, the links of codependent origination, how we form karma, one of the images, for instance, is of a house with 6 windows, in which there's a monkey who's excitedly going from one window to another to another. Monkeys can be very excitable, distractible creatures, and the idea is the 6 windows represent the 6 types of consciousness. So one moment the monkey's fascinated by what it sees, then what it hears, what it thinks, back to what it sees, maybe what it smells, what it tastes. And this is a great metaphor for the distracted mind. It's immediately understandable, and how we get fascinated by all these different objects of the senses. And teachers use this expression, monkey mind. Mingyur Rinpoche, who I actually want to quote in a minute, uses the idea of monkey mind as a way of describing our confused, distracted wanderings in samsara altogether. So what I want to read is something that does connect with what we talked about last week, which was that altogether, with all of the teachings in the Bardo, what we're asked again and again is not to be afraid, not to give in to our confusion, not get into our fixed dualistic ideas, but to simply relax and recognize. And that will continue to be the message as we continue our way through the wrathful deities. But I wanted to read something from Mingyur Rinpoche, from his book, Turning Confusion into Clarity, where he actually is talking about meditating on thoughts, or using thoughts in meditation. And the idea here, again, is that the problem with our monkey mind is that we very quickly get absorbed in or caught up in what we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, touch, think, feel, and emotionally, and become distracted, overwhelmed, and flooded. So that the problem we face in meditation, and here I'm talking about particularly in relation to thoughts, is not the nature of the thoughts themselves, but how we relate to them, which is what we talked about a little bit last week. So with that, I'll just quote Mingyur Rinpoche here. He says, "I did not fully understand, but I got this much. The difference between treating my thoughts as friends and treating them as enemies defined the difference between happiness and suffering. I still did not understand how to make friends with my thoughts, but I began to understand that trying to defeat those thoughts or wipe them out actually maintained the intensity of both the situation and the suffering. Normally, our monkey mind is in the driver's seat. Our thought leads one to another, and we cannot stop them, and often they drive us crazy. When we cultivate awareness, we no longer fall into the river. Awareness itself allows us to stand at the river's edge without getting sucked into the current. We are liberated from the tyranny of the monkey mind. Thoughts are still there. They may be quiet, or turbulent, focused or wild and scattered, but we have stopped identifying with them. We have become the awareness, not the thoughts. With the recognition of awareness, we can stand back and watch thoughts and know that we are watching them. We no longer need to get rid of them because they are no longer pushing us around. Identifying with our natural awareness and not the thoughts dissolves their destructive power. So it's that experience in meditation of being able to rest in awareness without needing to change, control, manipulate, stop, grasp, all of those things. That's what we cultivate in meditation practice, and that's ultimately what will help us in the bardo when we deal with the wrathful deities, the peaceful deities, and the vidyas, everything. When we're able to actually recognize that what we're seeing is nothing other than our own mind and the appearances that arise in our mind, just as in meditation now, in our lives, daily life now, when we practice meditation, whatever we experience is ultimately just what is in our mind. And that if we can rest in awareness, have some stability in that, hold our seat in Shambhala terms, then we don't need to give in to fear, anger, passion, all of the kleshas, the three poisons. And this idea is expressed in meditation practice. In the Mahayana, it's extended into daily life. For instance, through Lojong slogans like, whatever you meet unexpectedly, join with meditation. When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the path of Bodhi, to be the path of awake. So it's learning, we begin by learning something about what it means to identify with or rest in awareness in formal meditation practice. And then we extend that into our lives. We recognize the possibilities of that happening in our lives, because inherently the true nature of our mind allows us to do that when we recognize, when we recollect, when we're able to come back. And that's what we're asked to do. That's what we need to do in the bardo. And that's why over and over again, in reading if we were to be reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Liberation Through Hearing, as Francesca Fremantle prefers to call it, what we're doing is reminding again and again the dead person not to be afraid, to recognize, to be able to stay in awareness, to recollect their meditation practice for exactly the same reason. So what we are practicing on our meditation practice now can be very powerful in terms of helping us to navigate the bardo. So where we left off last week, we were talking about the mandala of the wrathful deities. As with the mandala of the peaceful deities, we began with the deity at the center. It was the Buddha Haruka. In wrathful form, but no different than Vairochana, the peaceful manifestation of the Buddha family energy. And then in the east, the Vajra Haruka, south, the Ratna Haruka, west, the Padma Haruka, and now we're coming to the north and the Karma Haruka. And again, just like with the peaceful deities, the Karma Haruka, or the Karma Buddha, Amoghasiddhi, appears last, and the peaceful deities, there's actually a vast explosion of energy. It's as if the mind is, it is the mind itself trying to wake itself up, trying to come back, trying to see through. By the time we've reached the bardo of the wrathful deities, we've not recognized the ground luminosity at the moment of death. We didn't recognize the manifestation of the different Buddha wisdoms as represented by the peaceful deities. So the intensity of the experience becomes greater and greater in order to wake us up. And so there are all kinds of graphic, grisly images as we go through the wrathful deities. But altogether, it's meant to wake us up. This is an odd association, but it reminded me of an interview with a football coach talking about his team trying to make to the Super Bowl, and how they had the year before knocked on the door by getting into the playoffs. This year they pounded on the door by getting almost all the way, and next year they're going to kick the door in. So you get the sense of growing intensity, and that's what we're up against. At this point, we're kicking the door in. Unfortunately, that's not what happened to his team, but I still like the growing idea of, more and more, the messages become stronger and stronger. The intensity of what we experience becomes stronger and stronger. And that's really in the fifth day, just as it was with the fifth day of the peaceful deities. This day with the Karma Haruka is a vast explosion of energy. So I'll just read very quickly from the Tibetan Book of the Dead exactly what it says about the 12th day. O child of noble family, listen without distraction. When the 12th day has come, the blood-drinking manifestation of the Karma family, called blessed Karma Haruka, will emerge from the northern quarter of your brain and appear before you clearly in union with his consort. His body is dark green in color, with 3 heads, 6 arms, and 4 legs spread wide apart. The right face is white, the left one red, and the center one majestic dark green. His 6 hands hold a sword in the first on the right, a trident bearing 3 human heads in the middle, and a rod in the last. A bell in the first on the left, a skull cup in the middle, and a plowshare in the last. His consort, Karma Krodeshvari, embraces his body, with her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left hand holding a skull cup of blood to his mouth. Do not be afraid of him. Do not be terrified. Do not be bewildered. Recognize him as the form of your own mind. He is your Yidam, so do not be afraid. He is really blessed Amoga Siddhi with his consort, so feel intense devotion. Recognition and liberation are simultaneous. So, the description of this Haruka is similar to the 4 that we talked about last week, with 4 legs, 6 arms, 3 faces, the middle face being the color of the particular family, so in this case green, dark green actually. And again, in the first right hand, the Haruka holds the particular symbol of the family, in this case a sword. The sword again is connected with, as she says, the tremendous activity and dynamic energy of the Karma family. It represents cutting through all obstacles. It represents the clarity of prajna that sees through twofold ego. There's both egolessness of self and egolessness of phenomena or egolessness of other. And again, the 4 legs and the 6 arms represent all of the have all of the meanings that we talked about last week. And the implement, most of the implements we talked about last week as well. The bell is a representation of emptiness because of the impermanence of sound in particular. The skull cup filled with blood represents the blood of, transmuted 3 places, 3 poisons of samsara: passion, aggression, and ignorance. The plowshare represents uprooting karma, clearing karma. And again, altogether, as with the other Harukas, presents in a wrathful, fearsome, very energetic, powerful form. So it's quite startling. As she says again, it's a tremendously active and dynamic energy of the Karma family, and represents in that respect the transmuted neurotic emotions that are associated with Karma family. There's transmuted jealousy, ambition, paranoia, competitiveness. And all of this is transmuted into what she calls all-accomplishing knowledge, what Trungpa Rinpoche said, all-accomplishing wisdom, the ability, again, to overcome all obstacles and achieve all aims. It's the wisdom that allows for direct expression of Buddha activity in the world. And again, all-accomplishing action. And again, the Karma Haruka represents in wrathful form Amoga Siddhi, the Buddha of the Karma family. Sometimes he says holds a double vajra, although I'm more familiar with the use of a sword to represent the Karma family. And again, this is cutting through all obscurations, all dualities, all misleading views. That's the power of the sword that the Karma Haruka holds. So again, the instruction again and again is not to be afraid, that even though this is a fearsome, forceful, dynamic, energetic manifestation, loud, and that it's important to overcome fear. And that when we're able to recognize their true nature, then we'll relax. But again, I'll just read another excerpt again from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Liberation Through Hearing. When this is said, as I read this before, when this is said, he will recognize the Yidam and merge inseparably with it and become a Buddha. So if we're able to recognize, let go, and realize this is just this is our own mind, and let go of seeing this as other, as separate from us, external to us. With this is said, he will recognize the Yidam and merging inseparably with it, become a Buddha. Through the instructions of the Guru, he will recognize them as his own projections, the play of the mind, and be liberated. It's just like seeing a stuffed lion, for instance. One feels very frightened, but if one does not know that it is, one feels very frightened if one does not know that it is really only a stuffed lion. But if someone shows you what it is, he is astonished and no longer afraid. So here too, he feels terrified and bewildered when the blood-drinking deities appear with their huge bodies and thick limbs, filling the whole of space. But as soon as one is shown, he recognizes them as his own projections or as Yidams. The luminosity on which one has meditated before, and the self-existing luminosity which arises later, mother and son merge together. And like meeting someone he used to know very well, the self-liberating luminosity of his own mind spontaneously arises before him, and he is self-liberated. So again, again and again and again, the instruction is not to be afraid, to hold one's seat, to let go of dualistic thoughts, to recognize that all appearances, all phenomena are reflected appearances of mind itself, and to let go and to dissolve into that, just as we, in a similar way, practice dissolving if we work with the out-breath, or just resting in awareness without, and just letting go of thoughts. That's what we're asked to do. That's what we're asked to practice. As she says in the text, essentially what's happening when we're able to do this is that awareness appears from itself to itself in order to liberate itself, like meeting an old friend. Self-illuminating, self-awareness is self-liberated. So it's that direct experience of non-conceptual, non-dual wisdom, and recognizing that that is the fundamental nature of mind when we're able to let go and allow ourselves to dissolve right into these experiences rather than fighting them, being afraid of them, running from them. And it is no different in essence than what we practice in meditation, when we're able to just be in awareness rather than being lost in monkey mind, letting thoughts have power over us, being flooded with kleshas, being flooded with passion, aggression, and ignorance, and not being aware of our awareness in any sense. So, again, this is what we're able to do at many points in the Bardo. Again, by the time we come to the wrathful deities, we've already not recognized previous experiences of the nature of our own mind as the peaceful deities or as the luminosity. When we do recognize the Bardo experiences are completely transformed, and we're no longer going to experience further stages of the Bardo of Dharmata, because we're just simply merged into the Sambhogakaya in this case. As it says in the text, even though liberation with recognition is simultaneous and inevitable, people who haven't heard these instructions or are unable to follow the instructions mean that, as it says in Francesca's text, even a good person could turn back and continue to wander in samsara. So with this, now, with this on the 12th day, as she says, a retinue of furious female deities appear from all directions in the mandala, filling all of space. So with this, there are further manifestations of energy, further manifestations of the nature of mind that express themselves as a number of dakinis. And again, this is similar to the fifth day of the peaceful deities as well. Again, there's just a vast explosion of energy. So the inner mandala is made up of the 8 gwaris and the 8 pishachis, which are, different manifestations of female energy, as well as 4 gatekeeper guardians. And again, this is exactly similar, the same structure as what we experience in peaceful form with the peaceful deities on the 5th day. So these different entities, the gwaris have human heads, the pishachis have heads of birds and animals. They often wear shawls of human or animal skin. They have different colored bodies, and they're just as overwhelming, just as powerful in their manifestations as the Harukas. But they don't have 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs, so they're more human-like in that sense. They drink blood and eat flesh. Some of the descriptions, as you know from reading the book, are quite graphic. But the idea represented by eating these, revolting substances, as she put it, that symbolizes accepting all aspects of samsara as fundamentally pure. It's really an expression of the wisdom of equality. It's seeing that that all these things that otherwise we have judgments about, that we have positive and negative feelings about, that all things are essentially the same in emptiness, that in their true nature they're fundamentally pure, and that it's just by making distinctions that we end up becoming confused and caught up in appearances and characteristics. So again, nothing is excluded in practice. So the 8 gwaris come from the 8 directions of the brain, the 4 cardinal directions, as well as the 4 intermediate directions, which is, and they're called mothers in the other text that she's quoting from, the 100 homages. But again, it was interesting to me because back when I was studying Buddhism years back, I had a friend who was Hindu. And what he said is, so he knew something about Hindu imagery and mythology and all of that. And I remember him saying what the Buddha did was he took Hinduism and turned it on its head. And this is a good example of exactly what that means. So the 8 gwaris. Gwari means, and again I'm quoting from Francesca's text, gwari means white, bright, or golden, and designates the most peaceful aspect as the beautiful young wife of Shiva. So that's the Hindu. Now it gets turned on its head. Here, she is adopted as a wrathful Buddhist goddess and is accompanied by an equally unexpected collection of ghouls, outcasts, and criminals. They unify all kinds of contradictions within themselves. And it's seeing these contradictions and seeing that, let me go through the contradictions she lists. That it makes beauty with horror, purity with impurity, the highest with the lowest, life with death. So the idea in understanding that is coming to see through the dualities that are created by conceptual mind. That, again, it's letting go of fixed reference point, letting go of conceptual fixations and conceptual isolations to see the unity of all of these things. As she says, they exemplify the paradoxical nature of the Dakini principle, using the very things that trap us in samsara to set us free. They exemplify the paradoxical nature of the Dakini principle, using the very things that trap us in samsara to set us free. So the more we understand what's being presented to us through these images, the more we're able to get over our initial shock, surprise, revulsion at some of the imagery, the more we understand that this is exactly what this presentation is trying to help us do, to work ourselves free of dualistic fixation, to see that the very things that trap us in samsara can set us free. That's really what we're working with with the 8 gwaris, actually with all the wrathful deities altogether. So the gwaris correspond to the 8 types of consciousness, just as the male bodhisattvas of the peaceful deities did, here female form. And so the 8 Gwaris represent the 8 types of consciousness. The 8 Pishachis represent the 8 types of objects of consciousness. So, for instance, the eye consciousness, the objects that, is the forms and the forms that appear to the eye. With sound, the ear consciousness, it's sound as the object that appears to the ear. So they match up in that way. And just to quickly review the 8 types of consciousness. Basically, the 8th consciousness is the Alaya Vijnana. It's called the storehouse consciousness. It is the consciousness where seeds of karma, karmic tendencies, habitual tendencies are. Its basic nature is actually luminous and empty, but because of karmic obscuration, it's not seen that way. And as a result of our, as we say every morning and every evening with the 4 reminders, cause and effect is inevitable. Because of the obscuration, that luminous emptiness is covered over by karmic distortions of all kinds. The 7th consciousness, it arises out of the 8th, and it is basically what's called the afflicted consciousness. Sometimes it's called the cloudy mind. Basically, the function of the 7th consciousness is that it looks back on the alaya as some kind of self, as a result of karma, and looks out through the 6 consciousnesses and takes them to be other. The 6th consciousness is the mental consciousness, and it is the mind that perceives thoughts and emotions. Actually, in Tibetan, the word namtak, which is translated as thought, includes emotions as well. There's no differentiation. So it's all objects of mind, all the objects of mind. And then you have the 5 sense consciousness: eye, ear, nose, tongue, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. And so those are the 8 types of consciousness. And that's basically what's being represented and being purified, actually transmuted through the 8 Gwaris and the 8 Pishachis as well. The Gwaris represent the consciousness, and the 8 Pishachis represent the objects of the consciousness. The reality is, when we actually look at a moment of mind, we can't separate them. That conceptually, again, we can. Again, it comes back to the example that I've given before, that was quite prevalent in the teachings, that we can look at a candle flame and conceptually we can isolate heat from light, conceptually, but in experience, in direct experience now, they're not really separable. They're all one thing that we experience. It's only by taking a step back into the world of concepts that we can actually divide them up. On a relative level, that can be helpful, but in ultimate truth, they're inseparable. And it's the same way with any moment of mind. At any moment of mind, yes, we can see that there's a consciousness and there's a form of some kind that we perceive. And we can conceptually separate the two. But in reality, it's all in the moment, one experience that is inseparable. So that's what these actually 16 sets of dakinis represent: consciousness and the objects of consciousness. So as always, begin in the east with the Gwari, who's actually white, holding a baby's corpse as a club. And Francesca says, the lifeless body symbolizes the original non-dualistic state of mind, that the baby never grows up into a world of self and other. There's the absence of duality. And this is the Alaya consciousness, the what she calls the source consciousness, the 8th consciousness. So it represents transcending karma, transcending the notion of duality, transcending the notion of self and other, and all of the things that come out of that. In the south is yellow Chwari, who she describes as a thief that steals whatever comes into her sphere. So it talks about it as stealing the treasure of enlightenment, because anything that we encounter can wake us up. Again, even thoughts themselves, if we see them as thoughts rather than identifying with them or pursuing them and becoming distracted, thoughts themselves can wake us up. Any sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, any emotion, anything could wake us up if we're able to rest in awareness, hold our seat, which is, again, brings me back to what I was saying before we began to talk about the wrathful deities. And also, this represents the mental consciousness. So it's interesting to me that it's a thief in this positive sense, that we could use anything for, to wake up, that anything can become the fuel for enlightenment. But it's also the seventh consciousness that steals the other way by looking back at the Alaya and seeing that as a self or a soul or an ego or whatever, and looking out at the world through the other six consciousnesses and seeing that as other. So in that, I guess it's a thief that can go either way. In any case, the yellow, this Gwari it represents transmuting of the afflicted consciousness, the mental consciousness. All right, red. Then the west is red pramoha. Actually, I mixed that up. It was the mental consciousness, not the seventh consciousness. Sorry about that. But still, same idea. The mental consciousness, by labeling concepts, labeling perceptions, takes us away from the immediacy of direct perception. So in that sense also, I guess you could say it's a thief. In the west is red pramoha, who ensnares with arts of illusion. Has the water monster as a victory banner that symbolizes victory over the ocean of samsara, shows that samsara isn't abandoned or rejected, but accepted as it really is. So again, this I guess you could talk about this as the inseparability of samsara and nirvana. And I'm sorry, I was wrong before. This is the one that represents the seventh consciousness, the afflicted consciousness. So it's the illusion that actually of self and other that's overcome here. In the north is black Vaitali, the vampire. It's a ghoulish spirit that haunts charnel grounds and enters and reanimates corpses. This represents the touch, the body consciousness, the sense of touch, and transcends the existence of non-existence. She says this transcends the notions of existence and non-existence, very fundamental dualities. In the southeast is orange-colored Pukasi. The name indicates that she belongs to an outcast group due to mixed marriages between castes. So again, in the Hindu tradition, this would be a powerful image because of the consciousness of castes. And she's holding and eating entrails, devouring intestines, as Francesca says, means that she consumes poisons just as they are, recognizing their inherently, naturally pure state. And this connects with the smell consciousness, nose, ability to smell. The southwest is dark green Gasmari, the voracious, which naturally connects with taste, consciousness of taste. Drinking the blood of samsara from a skull cup with stirring up blood, bone, and flesh, which symbolizes consuming passion, aggression, and ignorance, and turning them into wisdom, turning them into the fuel for enlightenment, the sustenance for enlightenment. In the northwest is pale yellow Chandali. This connects with the sight consciousness, eye consciousness. And again, it relates to the outcast, the lower caste in India, that this is a woman of the what Francesca Frementle says is the lowest and most despised outcast group, tearing ahead from a corpse, which symbolizes separation from false views. Again, overcoming conceptual mind. Vivid image to convey that idea. In the northeast is dark blue Shmashani, the charnel ground dweller. This connects with the hearing consciousness, ear consciousness. Eating and tearing apart a corpse, which Francesca says is interpreted as separation from the source of samsaric existence, the causes of wandering in samsara. In other words, our attachment to ego, ignorance, and false views. And again, it's interesting that this liberation is connected with hearing, because hearing the Dharma, what frees us is hearing the Dharma. So again, so those are the Gwaris, and then we have the 8 Pishachis, and again, they match up with the 8 Gwaris in that the Gwaris represent the different eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, seventh and eighth consciousnesses. These represent the objects of the consciousness. And historically, they're originally demonic beings whose names, she says, may be derived from flesh-eating creatures or with multicolored heads and bodies. I mean, again, in this case, the four in the cardinal directions have animal heads, while those in the intermediate directions have heads of birds. They represent in wrathful form the natural purity of the 8 sense objects. So again, it's the natural purity of these objects of perception, just as the female bodhisattvas did with the peaceful deities. So again, with the Gwaris, we're talking about the different consciousnesses. Now we're talking about the different objects of the consciousness, which ultimately are inseparable. And again, we follow the same order in terms of the directions of east, south, west, north, and then the intermediate directions. So in the east is Simhamukha, the lion-headed, that's dark maroon or purple color, indicating its wrathful quality. And this represents the objective field of the Alaya consciousness, the source consciousness, the Dharmadhatu sphere of reality. She carries a corpse. The lion carries a corpse in her mouth, symbolizing complete domination of samsara. In the south is Vyagrimukha, the tiger-headed, red with arms crossed, representing objects of the mental consciousness, and stares with penetrating eyes in order to pacify samsara. In the west is the jackal or fox-headed, black roaming charnel grounds, carrying a razor that cuts out intestines, hearts, and lungs, which he holds up and eats, symbolizing the natural purification of the poisons. These are the contents of the afflicted seventh consciousness, the cloudy mind. In the north is dog-headed, dark blue, charnel grounds, carrying apart a corpse, holding it up, staring into samsara, representing the objects of touch. In the southeast is Gridamukha, the vulture-headed, which representing objects of the eye consciousness, forms, sights, carries a human corpse and skeleton, pulling out entrails to cut off the 3 poisons. In the southwest is the heron or hawk-headed one, Kankamukha, which throws a flayed human skin over her shoulders to symbolize acceptance of samsara as pure, representing objects of smell. In the northwest is crow-headed Kakamukha, black, holding objects of taste, eating heart and lungs, symbolizing liberation of the poisons. And in the northeast is the owl-headed Ulamukha, dark blue, representing objects of hearing. So altogether, between the Harukas, who connect with the 5 skandhas, the Gwaris, who connect with the 8 types of consciousness, and the Pishachis, which relate to the 8 types of sense objects, all of this is our innately pure nature. All of this is what, in a distorted way, we experience and identify with as the 5 skandhas, the 8 types of consciousness, and the 8 sense objects. This inner mandala is protected by 4 gates, just again, as with the peaceful deities, there were again four gates and 4 guardians. The idea is that they shut the door to the 4 kinds of birth and open the doors to the 4 Vajra activities, or the 4 karmas of pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. She also says that they embody the 4 immeasurables, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. That they keep watch at the boundaries of the mandala so that every aspect of relationship with the external world is filled with compassion, kindness, joy for others, and equanimity. And that without these altruistic emotions, without this compassion, it's impossible to accomplish the 4 activities or to escape rebirth. So again, these are also animal-headed. In the eastern gate, there's white horse-headed Ankusha, the Devi with a hook. And the idea is the iron hook of compassion pulls beings from samsara. And this represents actually the action of pacifying. Bringing peace, bringing clarity, allowing, letting go of negativity and obstacles. In the southern gate is the yellow pig-headed Devi with a noose, Pasha, representing loving kindness that snares and binds the mistaken views that prevent us from realizing the truth. And this represents enriching. It's the idea with a noose, drawing in, pulling together. Again, that's the enriching manifestation. At the western gate is the red Devi with a chain, lion-headed Shrinkala. This overcomes the fetters of the poison of ignorance. and it's boundless joy in the awakening of all beings. And this is the magnetizing action that draws in all that's needed for enlightenment, all that's needed for practice, and on a nirmanakaya level that draws people to the Dharma through clarity, compassion, and warmth. And in the northern gate, finally, there's a serpent-headed Devi, a green serpent-headed Devi with a bell, Ganta, which is another word for bell, whose loud ringing subdues all thoughts of the five poisons and represents boundless equanimity. This represents the destroying activity, destroying karma, that what can't be pacified, enriched, magnetized is destroyed and let go of completely. So that's a complete description of the inner mandala. Again, we have at the center Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri in wrathful form. We have the five Harukas with consorts. Around those, we have the 8 Gwaris and 8 Pishachis representing the different types of consciousness and objects. And then this entire inner mandala is guarded by these 4 guardians. And so with that, I am going to stop, and we'll start hearing about the rest of what manifests on this final day of the wrathful deities, which John will present.
Thank you, Michael. Let's see if I can get this link there. I'd like to start out by reminding you, let's just all take a seat and bring our minds right here into the present. Relax your awareness into the view of this screen, the room that you're in, your bodily sensations, your awareness of these words, hearing. Basically, all of our 6 gates of awareness: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental events. We rest here, viewing it all, effortlessly, without comment. This clear view, without any comment, without good and bad, without purpose, without any kind of interpretation. This is the mind that can see what is being described here. It's what we practice every day when we come to meditation practice, either in a group or alone. We practice this clear, open, non-conceptual mind. And then, of course, as we go about our days, we slip into conceptual commentary. And this commentary is always judgmental: what's good, what's bad; purposeful, what is taking us toward our goal or away from it; and many other things. These conceptual thoughts, which come in and out of our minds during the day and before we go to sleep, color and change our understanding of what is coming to us through the senses. And by senses, I'm including not only eye, ear, nose, tongue, and touch, but also the mind itself, because we interpret and judge our mental events as well. And we get lost in these stories, these interpretive stories, always good and bad, always with a purpose, always heading in some direction. So this world that is being presented to us, this world of the wrathful deities, is really only available in those moments of clarity when we cease to mentally function and lay our mental trips, as it were, on all of these events that are arising in the moment. This is why we're being exhorted all the time to come back to meditation. The clarity of open-mindedness. It's not only that this is where sanity lies, and we can be at peace and actually interact intelligently with the world. It's that this is the only place where we can actually see the world as it truly is. The rest of the time, we're seeing this world, and by world I mean sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, mental events, all of it. We're seeing it through the interpretive veil of concept. That is what we let go. So our technique again and again is to come present, to come here, to come now, to see it simply as it is. There's nothing more than that. And that's where these peaceful and wrathful deities abide. It's in that space of clarity. Without that space, we can't make contact. This is what's meant when he says, ladies or yoginis gather around the periphery of the mandala. They represent many different aspects of our characteristics, functions, and activities. They do. Ordinarily arising from the poisons, but now bursting forth as spontaneous expressions of awakened energy. No corner of our being is left unillumined and unaroused by the explosion of wrathful compassion. This is the true compassion. It involves clarity, the clarity of emptiness, shunyata, lack of concept, the vividness of this world, and compassion, which means our ability to resonate with it. This is, as for these feminine energies, in Hinduism they're called Shakti, the power of energy of their consorts. This is Francesca. She originally came to us from Hindu studies, but has long gone beyond that. Although this term is not generally used in Buddhism, it agrees perfectly with the functions of the dakinis in this context. From the point of view of Buddhism, belief in any deity as existing outside ourselves and having power over us is false and misleading. You have to actually sort of step aside and think this. It's an activity. You think about it, and you're no longer present here. You're lost in the thought. You're lost in the thought that this deity, which is a deity, that's a thought right there, exists outside of ourselves and has power over us and is false and misleading. All of that is a thought. Their worship is spiritual materialism, the desire to gain something from religious activity rather than to understand the nature of mind. So what we're constantly doing in our practice, every morning as we do our meditation practice, every evening as we do our meditation practice, we are developing the clear, open, unjudging, non-conceptual mind that can see the wrathful deities as they are, without distortion, without purposefulness. Once we have realized our ultimate empty nature and that of the deities, well, that's just coming back into clear, open emptiness, shunyata. The principles and forces they represent become transformed into instruments of Dharma. In this way, many deities of the Orthodox Hindu tradition, as well as lesser-known local Indian and Tibetan deities, have been assimilated into Vajrayana, as appears to be the case with these yoginis. All of these images, these phenomena that arise, colorful, vivid, energetic, having an effect on us, when seen clearly, become the things of Vajrayana. Some of these hold emblems, such as the Vajra, wheel, lotus, and vase, symbolizing some of their enlightened qualities. Some bear weapons like clubs, spears, razors to destroy the poisons and cut through the dullness of perception. Some drink blood, some eat raw flesh to symbolize unbiased acceptance and transmutation. We can only see this unbiased acceptance and transmutation, when we drop our schemes, our conceptual overlays, and simply see things as we are. So we're constantly being exhorted to step into this no man's land of pure perception. The heads of birds of prey show us that they seek out with all-seeing eyes the smallest obstacles and evil tendencies in order to devour them. They invite us to experience life completely, without holding back, with total awareness. So that's really what enables us to step into the world of these wrathful deities, is this ability with fearlessness to drop our conceptual overlays and see things as they arise, and not to hold on to them, not to try and find some kind of external meaning in them. So first he describes the 6 yoginis of the East performing the activity of pacifying. And he then describes them. We're not going to go through them. You can read this. There's Rakshasi, the demoness, dark maroon. Next comes orange Brahmi, consort of Brahma, who represents the universal power of creation. These are all aspects of reality that can appear to us when we drop our conceptual overlays and interpretations. Mahadevi, the great goddess, Vaishnavi, the consort of Vishnu, who is the all-pervading power of preservation. She has the head of a mongoose, because mongoose represents wealth. They constantly spew jewels out of their mouths, reflecting her role as goddess of fortune and prosperity, in which she is better known as Lakshmi. Lakshmi was a Hindu goddess. And it goes on to describe them. They're very vivid. Kaumari, the maiden, is the consort of Kumara, the youth, the warrior's son of Shiva, who was born to defeat a powerful demon. And it goes on. Indrani, consort of Indra, is white with the head of a brown bear. She and Indra rule the god realm with its vast power, gratification of all desires, and illusions of immortality. These forces are available to us to see when we give up looking for meaningfulness in the phenomenal world, when we see it as it is. In the south of the mandala appear the 6 yoginis who perform the activity of enriching. Remember, we've got, we have pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying, the 4 karmas. In the south, we get the yoginis who perform the activity of enriching. I'm not going to go through all 5. There are 6 of these. You can read them yourself. They're Vajra, Shanti, Amrita is one of them, Chandra, the moon, Danda, he who bears a club, and Rakshasi, the demoness. In the west of the mandala appear the 6 yoginis who perform the activity of magnetizing. When we stop looking for meaning and see things as they are, these yoginis arise, not as yoginis particularly, not as personifications of anything, but as forces, as events, as activities in the world, and they appear, and we can recognize them. So, for instance, Bhakshini, the devourer, she appears in the west when we begin to perform the activity of magnetizing. dark green with a club in her hand, the head of a vulture, the bird that hovers over scenes of carnage waiting for death to provide its source of food. With her weapon, she bludgeons malignant forces and then devours them. We may or we may not actually see a female figure, or we may simply see a force that is behaving in this way. And then there are the other five: Ratni, Mahabala, Rakshasi, Karma, Kama, which is lust, and Vasaraksha, the protection of wealth. In the north of the mandala appear the 6 yoginis who perform the activity of destruction. And then it goes through them. And supposedly, to the extent that you can rest in the mind of meditation, you will meet these deities in one way or another as forces. After these 24 yoginis of the 4 directions, the final 4 yoginis emerge to guard the outer gate of the mandala. The eastern gate, white Vajra, with the head of a cuckoo holding an iron hook. The southern gate, yellow Vajra, with the head of a goat holding a noose. These are all symbolic of their activity and of their character. The western gate, red Vajra, with the head of a lion holding an iron chain, and the northern gate, green Vajra, with the head of a serpent holding a bell. So what we're beginning to do as we enter this world is to see the meaningfulness of the phenomena as they arise. And the only way we can do that is when we give up all of our conceptual schema, worrying about living, worrying about being loved, worrying about whatever is hoping for this, hoping for that, fearing the other. These protect the outermost boundaries of the experience of the bardo of Dharmata, the state in which we see reality face to face. And the way we do that is by coming completely 100% present, without any agenda, without purpose, seeing it clearly. This is what we're exhorted to do all the time in our practice. And when we do it, we will see this world and we can interact with it. Some traditions add 2 further stages to the bardo of Dharmata. Now, the bardo of Dharmata, you remember, this means the bardo of reality. That's what Dharmata means. This is the bardo in which everything that arises, all of these phenomena, the trees that surround us, the cars, the people, all of that stuff has meaning. Dharmata has the meaning of Dharma. That doesn't mean that it's Buddhist doctrine. It just means that it's meaningful in terms of interaction. And then she mentions 2 more stages to the bardo of Dharmata, which are not included in the Book of the Dead, Liberation Through Hearing. Remember, Liberation Through Hearing is the actual sort of English translation of the true title of that work. The Book of the Dead was a title that was given to it by an early translator into English, and is not the real title. And so there, she says here, by means of the 4 Vajra activities, they liberate us from the bonds of illusion and block the doors to the 4 kinds of birth, so that we do not wander any further toward the bardo of becoming. The bardo of Dharmata is followed by the bardo of becoming. And the bardo of becoming, if you will remember, is the famous 49 days in which we wander as in a dream with the body of a child, and eventually see our parents copulating and enter the womb of the mother and are reborn. So all of this that's being described, these deities of the bardo of Dharmata, this takes place before the bardo of becoming. If you have practiced enough and can really rest in the mind of awareness, you can achieve full enlightenment in the bardo of Dharmata, and you will never then enter the bardo of becoming. What does she call the bardo of becoming?
Bardo of existence.
Thank you, the Bardo of existence. Yeah, it's a little confusing, the way she changes the names around from what other people have named them. So all the visions that arise during the Bardo of Dharmata are the spontaneous natural expressions of our awakened mind, which is none other than inseparable emptiness and luminosity. We can only see these visions in emptiness, which means they're stripped of our conceptual stories that overlay them. That's gone. And then they are luminous, all these phenomena. They glow. And that luminosity she's referring to as luminosity. Yes. Ursel, Praphasvara. These are the two main characteristics of reality, empty of concept and luminous. Luminous is beautiful, is vivid, beautiful, moving, meaningful, all of that. We begin to see this world as a magical, meaningful, moving display. It says, our state of bondage in samsara is really nothing but non-recognition. We perpetuate it all the time. In our thoughts, we wander down the street thinking, oh, this, oh, that, I like this person, what am I going to do about this problem I've got, blah, blah, blah. We're just lost in dream. And that is, he says, is what keeps us from being self-liberated. Our state of bondage in samsara is really nothing but non-recognition of the real, and the real only happens now, right now. The Bardo of Dharmata is a tremendous opportunity because it presents reality so clearly and nakedly. Liberation is simply seeing things as they really are. Recognition and liberation are simultaneous. This is such a slogan, and she's repeated again and again by Francesca. Recognition of the real, here, now, and liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from the bondage of our thoughts, our plans, our hopes, our fears, all of it. Liberation from that. And so recognition of the real and liberation from neurosis are simultaneous. And it says this again and again in the text. But if we're unable to recognize, if we get so completely lost in our dreams, our confusion and terror will make us perceive these radiant forms of our own mind as demons, drifting further and further away from the original non-dual awareness of the ground of being. We begin to feel more and more separate and vulnerable. And then there's this passage which I thought I would just read verbatim. O child of awakened family, that's us. The Dharmakaya arises out of the aspect of emptiness as the peaceful deities. The Dharmakaya, this is it, empty of concept. Recognize it. The Sambhogakaya arises out of the aspect of clarity as the wrathful deities. The aspect of clarity as the wrathful deities. So recognize it. And I think of my good friend here in Boulder who says he can't wait to die and go to the Bardo of Dharmata and meet all these wrathful deities. When the 58 blood-drinking deities emerge from within your brain and appear before you, if you understand that whatever appears is shining from the intrinsic inner radiance of your awareness, you will immediately awaken, inseparable from the images of the blood-drinking deities. So you're going to see them. But they're, instead of being utterly frightening, what it says later in the text, I forget where here, it's like seeing, you saw this stuffed animal and you were afraid of it. And now you see that it's just a stuffed animal appearing in all of its friendliness and color. It says, O child of awakened family, if you do not recognize in this way, you will be afraid and flee from them, and so you will return to even greater suffering. If you do not recognize in this way, you will see all the blood-drinking deities, not as stuffed animals, but as the Lord of Death, and you will be afraid of them. You will be petrified and faint with terror. Your hallucinations will turn into demons, and you will wander in samsara. All the wrathful deities will be transformed into the ferocious form of Yama, Lord of Death, known as the Dharma King, and all the peaceful deities will be transformed into Mahakala. Mahakala means great demon, an extremely powerful protector of the Dharma. So now we can no longer perceive the visions as awakened beings, but because we've gotten confused, but only as demonic, evil, and threatening. And we move out of the experience of the bardo of dharmata into the bardo of existence. And this is the bardo in which we're going to be reborn. And there's a quote from the text. O child of awakened family, when the visions of this kind appear, do not be afraid. You have a mental body of karmic imprints. So even if you are killed and cut into pieces, you cannot die. This is one of the lessons. We think, this is me, I'm going to die. And what it's saying is that the consciousness does not die. Everything changes around it and in it. Everything. And if you're afraid of it, you're going to be bound into some kind of evil, suffering state. But if you're not, if you embrace it, you not only do not die, but you enter the bardo of reality. You are really the natural form of emptiness. This is what each one of us truly is. We think, I'm this. This, look at it, it's not, I'm 80 years old. It's nothing like what it was when I was 6. It's gone. Every cell in my body changes every 7 years. Isn't that what they say? The biologists, yeah, 7 years. So, where is it? What has kept on going? Nothing. It's a continual process of change, of death and rebirth. And that is what's going to happen when we die. Death and rebirth, constant change. Even the lords of death themselves arise from the intrinsic inner radiance of your awareness. They have no solid substance. Emptiness cannot harm emptiness. Have confidence that the external, peaceful, and wrathful deities, the blood-drinking Harukas, the animal-headed deities, the rainbow lights, and the terrifying forms of the Lord of Death do not really exist. They only arise from the inherent creative energy of your awareness. And to the extent that we stay dreaming, we will be trapped with them. If you understand this, all fear is liberated in its natural state and merging inseparably, you will become awakened. This is our path. It's gorgeously described. The instructions remind us again that all these fearful visions are really our chosen deity, our awakened nature. We should call on that deity and call on our guru for help in realizing that they are not our enemies, that there is nothing to fear. There is only awareness to be exercised. The aspiration prayer at this stage is much longer than the previous verses. It particularly calls on Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. The 6 syllables of his mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, relate to the 6 realms of existence. They are visualized in the colors of the Buddhas of the 6 realms, who are living presence of compassion, taking form within each realm. And then he goes through each of these syllables of Om Mani Padme Hum. Om is white and represents the realm of the gods. Ma is green and represents the realm of the jealous gods, and so forth. You can read this rather than have listened to me recite it. By meditating on the mantra in this way, our awakened nature, this is what it is, We can awaken the power of compassion within ourselves and direct it toward all living beings. Yeah, I'll read this. Ma is green, represents the realm of the jealous gods. Ni is yellow and represents the human realm. Pad, pronounced Pe in Tibetan, is blue and represents the animal realm. Pad is the pronunciation in Sanskrit. Me is red and represents the realm of the hungry ghosts, and Hum is black and represents the realm of hell. Om Mani Padme Hum. It says, just as the true nature of everything we see is the deity's form, is reality, is holy, so everything we hear is really the underlying sacred vibration of mantra. The deafening roar of cosmic thunder and the violent threatening yells of the demons in the bardo all become the liberating sound of the 6 syllables, transforming our perception so that we recognize the true nature of the visions. We have time, I'm going to read this thing that he quotes from the bardo, she quotes from the bardo, the Book of the Dead. When through intense karmic imprints, I wander in samsara. Karmic imprints means thoughts of me, I. When we're really trapped in these thoughts, they make us wander in samsara. On the luminous path of abandoning projections of fear and terror, may the blessed ones, peaceful and wrathful, go before me. The wrathful ladies of space behind me, help me to cross the bardo's dangerous passage and bring me to the perfect awakened state. And the way in which we do this is what we're doing every morning and every evening, coming back to this, letting go of our intention, any intention, including the intention to come back to this. You just relax into this awareness that's already here. Parted from beloved ones, wandering alone, now when the empty forms of self-display appear, may the Buddhas send out the power of their compassion so that the bardo's fears and terror do not arise. When the 5 clear lights of knowledge shine, remember the 5 bhumis, 5 Buddha realms. Fearlessly may I recognize myself. When the forms of the peaceful and wrathful ones appear, fearless and confident, may I recognize the bardo. And this fearlessness and recognition are contentless. They have no words. They have no content. They are simple, pure, unadulterated awareness. When I suffer through the power of evil karma, may my chosen deity remove all suffering. And here he's talking about deity practice, which I don't think anybody in this room is doing yet, but will, such as Vajrayogini practice. When the natural sound of Dharmata roars like 1,000 thunders, may it all become the sound of the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. When I follow my karma without a refuge, may the Lord of great compassion, Avalokiteshvara, be my refuge. When I suffer the results of karmic imprints, this is what we're doing all the time, when we lapse into dreams, habits, habitual dreams, these are the karmic imprints that have formed in us and that carry us away all the time into dream states. So when I suffer the results of karmic imprints, like somebody says something to you and you get irritated. I do this all the time. It's the karmic imprint coming into action, taking me away. May the Lord of great compassion be my refuge. When I suffer the result of karmic imprints, may the samadhi of bliss and luminosity arise. May the 5 elements not rise up as enemies. May I see the realms of the 5 Buddhas. This section of the text concludes by repeating once again the vital importance of practice during life and the great benefit even of simply hearing this teaching. So the extent to which we let go into this, the real, in the moment, without past and future, without thought of past and future. This is what is being discussed. It points out that most people are frightened and confused all the time. Whether they are used to meditating or not and need the help of this guidance through the bardo. Then, if they practiced while they were alive, those who recognize the nature of mind and attained stability in this realization, in their realization, will be very strong when the luminosity of death appears. They'll just rest here in awareness, responding to whatever happens to be arising, which is the way to live a real life. Those who have gained experience in deity yoga will be very strong when the visions of the peaceful and wrathful deities appear, so they too will recognize and be liberated. Okay. In the bardo, we are not constricted by the limitations of the physical body. And it is said that the intelligence is 9 times clearer. Oh, happy day! We're 9 times smarter in the bardo than we are now. So that's something to look forward to, because so even if you have only heard this teaching once without understanding it at the time, in the bardo it is possible to remember it exactly, word for word, and to grasp its meaning instantly. And this is in all the bardo teachings. Isn't that terrific? Therefore, it should be taught to everyone during their life. It should be read at the bedside of all who are sick. It should be read beside the bodies of all the dead. It should be spread far and wide. And here's my request, and you can all make yours. Please read this to my dead body. Because I'm really stupid, and I need the reminder. Absolutely. But it all depends upon the power of connections and adhisthana. Adhisthana is blessing. And all of us are benefiting from the power of adhisthana. That's why you're here now. This is the power of adhisthana, power of the blessing of the Dharma. We would never even have a chance of hearing it or reading it if we had not previously made some move toward it and established a link in a previous life. Gradually, over many lives, our understanding and responsiveness grows, so that suddenly, in a single word, may be enough to reawaken our innate knowledge. We've all got a history with this. You couldn't be here if you didn't. We must never forget that along with the harm we undoubtedly do and the negative karmic results we continually create for ourselves, we have also done a vast amount of good during our lives and planted countless seeds of positive potentiality. So finally it concludes with this. To meet with this great good fortune, it is hard to meet, except for those who have purified the obscuring veils and developed goodness. And this is what meditation is. It's letting go of the veil of thought and resting in this awareness here and now, which is goodness. Even if one meets it, it is difficult to take in. When one hears it, one is liberated simply by not disbelieving. How about that? So, those of you who aren't disbelieving right now, you're going to be liberated if you're not already. Therefore, it should be cherished as most precious. It draws out the essence of all Dharma. So we have just a few minutes. Tomorrow we can discuss this. This is so profound for all of us. And it really brings meaning to our practice and why we're practicing. Any comments, complaints, requests for refunds? Isn't that amazing? I mean, that what we've been doing all along, this meditation practice, going out with the breath, dissolving, here we are, this is it.
It's often said in the Mahamudra tradition that one reason we don't recognize is that it's so simple. And I think this is exactly what we're being told here. It's really this simple.
Utter simplicity. We like complications. If I do this, then I'll get that, blah, blah, blah. All that's out the window.
I learned that when you read a chapter on your own, and then you have someone read that same chapter who knows 9 times more than you do, it is infinitely more valuable. So thank you for contextualizing all the images, because reading the text on my own, I would have been not quite lost, but missing most of the nuance that was there. Thank you.
Yeah, I really echo my friend who says he's so looking forward to meeting all these things when he dies, They're going to be and they're going to be like teddy bears. It says in the text, I don't know, it's hard to imagine.
One way the right way.
Huh?
If we see them the right way, or if we see them for what they actually are.
Yeah, and they're going to be so kind and friendly and good, good to meet.
The other reason it's said to be hard to recognize is because it's so close. Actually stumbled across a great quote from Kensei Rinpoche, where he said, looking for awareness is like hunting for elephants when there's already an elephant in your living room.
That's great. That's still go, Kensei?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, here it is in our living room, everybody.
But we don't recognize it. But we could.
This is our practice. Come back again and again. Well, we should say the closing chant.
We should. I'll put it up and we can recite, dedicate the merit of our practice and study for the benefit of all sentient beings.
And come tomorrow. Complain.
Yeah. So we'll close with the dedication of merit. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stubborn ways of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the radiance wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to all of us.
John.
Thank you,
Treading the
everyone.
path, treading the path together.
See everybody.
Thanks, Michael, so much. Thanks, John.
It's wonderful.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks,
All right,
Michael.
great.
Huh?
That was great. Anyway, we should stop. We'll see you tomorrow.
I just tell you, oh yeah, just turn off this recording.